if diffusion will happen during transformation, the composition will change. But let me give you an example where diffusion will happen, but still composition will not change. So best example is iron, pure iron. If that means if you know that pure iron has basically like BCC, FCC and again BCC, right? You remember? Alpha ferrite, then gamma, then again delta ferrite, right? So whatever changes may be there, right? Suppose BCC iron become FCC iron or FCC iron become BCC iron, basically, there will be diffusion. But there will be no change in composition. Why? Because this is pure iron. Everywhere iron is there, right? There is no change in composition. But they will arrange only in a particular crystalline fashion. That's all. Right? But if you talk about steel and this kind of transformation will happen, then there will be change in composition due to diffusion. Right? Okay, anyway. So now talking about free energy. Okay. So energy involved. Okay, you people know which kind of energy is very useful for phase transformation. That is free energy. Obviously, we cannot do anything if we don't have any free energy, right? So free energy is the energy which is available with the system to do some useful work, or to do some work. Some energy is available, freely available. That's why it is called free energy, right? So first important energy is called free energy, right? Or you can write gives free energy, no problem, same thing. And this energy, if you want to do transformation, this energy should be increased or decreased?
Decrease.
Decrease. You should be confident enough. It should be
Decrease.
increase. It should decrease, no? Right? Because change in free energy should be negative. The free energy of product minus free energy of reactant, or free energy of the transformation product minus free energy of the parent phase should be negative, delta G. Right. So free energy should be reduced for the transformation. You understand my point?
Yes, sir.
If you are getting confused, then I can write V product minus V reactant should be negative. And this is nothing but the delta G. Right? Should be negative. Negative means it should decrease. Free energy of reactant should be high. Free energy of product should be low. Then only it will be negative. No? This should be high. This should be low. You understand my point? So first, energy involved during phase transformation is the free energy, which should decrease, or you can say this is nothing but a driving force. So driving force for the phase transformation here means the change in free energy or free energy difference between the product phase and reactant phase. Okay. We know already this one. We talked about a lot of things. Huh? But what are other energy involved during phase transformation? One is called interfacial energy. Or some people call surface. Anybody remember when a tiny solid nuclei forms inside the liquid melt? You remember that diagram?
Yes, sir.
During nucleation stage,
Yes.
a tiny solid nuclei forms inside the liquid, a spherical nuclei, right? And what is the interface, you remember? Suppose this is the liquid. A tiny solid nuclei forms. Right? What is the interface here? Interface is the boundary. Boundary between. This is the interface, right? Because this is liquid. This is liquid, this is solid. This is different phase, this is different phase. The boundary is the interface. When an interface forms, what happens? The energy increases or decreases? You don't remember? Increases. No?
Increases, sir. Increases. Minus. Sir.
It increases, right? Because initially only liquid was there, a new phase is formed which is solid, and due to formation of this solid, an interface is forming. Some energy is added to the system. But when energy will be added to the system, then reaction will be feasible or not feasible? Not feasible. Because it increases the energy, total energy of the system. Yes or no? If energy will be added, reaction will not feasible because it is increasing the energy. We want our energy to decrease. overall energy should decrease, then only transmission will happen or some reaction may happen. You understand my point? So interfacial energy is basically increases. Huh? Anybody remember the expression of delta GF? When a tiny solid nuclei forms inside a liquid, what is delta GF?
H upon T.
Two things are there. One is related to volume, one is related to the surface area.
Surface area, yes, sir.
Right? 4 by 3 pi r cube GS minus GL, then plus 4 pi r square gamma.
Yes, sir.
Yes or no?
Yes.
This is the volume free energy. Volume of the sphere into energy associated with the this volume, right? Plus 4 pi r square gamma. This is gamma is nothing but the interfacial energy, right? You remember this one is negative or positive? Negative, and this one is
Positive.
Positive. You remember that's why you cannot comment on delta GF whether it is positive or whether it is negative, right? And I have drawn a curve, if you remember, G versus R, critical size of nuclei versus G. Remember no? This one. G versus radius of nuclei.
Yes, sir.
This one is for volume, this one is for surface area, this one. And this one is this. And overall will be?
Down.
You remember no?
Yes, sir.
And this is your R star.
R star.
This is G star. G star, this is R star. You people forget everything. Anyways, so second energy associated with the phase transformation is the interfacial energy or surface energy. And this comes into picture due to this formation of a new interface. Because you have a parent phase, a new phase is coming out. So due to formation of new phase, there is an interface. And some energy is associated with that interface. That energy is called interfacial energy, which is basically which increases basically, right? And the last one is the you people remember the second phase particles in the parent phase. You remember precipitation strengthening? During precipitation strengthening, some precipitate, some carbides, carbonitrates, some nitrates forms on the matrix. Anybody remember any example of precipitate in aluminium alloy? When you add copper into aluminium, some precipitates start forming. Anybody remember? Al2Cu, a precipitate intermetallic phase between aluminium and copper, Al2Cu, right? Basically, it forms in the aluminium matrix. The matrix is aluminium, but the precipitate is a compound of aluminium and copper, right? So, if, for example, if your lattice parameter will be different, so that means a lattice parameter of this compound will be there, and lattice parameter of a matrix phase will be there. If it will be different, what will happen? In the entire body, what will happen? What will generate? Some voids. What you are saying? Lattice parameter, you are getting my point. The edge length, for example, or distance between the interplanar spacing, for example, between the planes. What will happen? Okay, so when you are adding carbon into the iron lattice, what happens to the lattice?
Dislocation.
Distortion happens. Distortion happens means what is happening? Strain. Some strain is
Yes,
getting
sir.
generated. You understand my point? Why? Because carbon atom is somewhat bigger than the void size. Similarly, if you put some bigger atoms into iron crystal, for example, what happens to the iron lattice? Again, some strain will generate.
Yes, sir.
Right? If the size is bigger, because it will push others. So same thing happens if a precipitate forms in same matrix and the dimension of precipitate is different. Dimension means I am talking about the lattice parameter. If it is different, so what will happen? Some strain will generate in the material. So that strain has some energy associated with it. That is called strain energy. Okay?
Yes.
So last energy associated with the transmission is?
Strain energy.
So basically this energy comes into picture when some precipitate forms, when some dispersoid will be there, right? Or some atoms are bigger or smaller than the parent lattice. Some strain will generate. That strain has some energy associated with it, that is called strain energy. So these are the three energy involved during phase transmission. So most important one is this one. Without this no transformation will happen, right? And next is this one, right? So this basically this one is more important, but this one is not always there. So you should remember this kind of thing is not there in the solidification when liquid becomes solid. You remember now we have talked about this one and this one. This is associated with the volume, this is associated with the interfacial, right? And this one, you remember, this one is the driving force, G, delta G, Gs minus Zl, energy of solid minus energy of liquid. You understand my point? So this part is this one, and this part is second phase, gamma, right? But there is no this one, there is no strain. So when liquid becomes solid, there is no strain, right? So there is no strain energy. But in solid state transformation, if some precipitate will form, like some carbides will form, some carbonitrates, some nitrates is forming in the matrix, then some strain will come. That strain has some energy associated with it, that is called strain energy, right? And this is basically, this also increases the energy, right? So this is decreasing, this is increasing, this is increasing basically, right? Okay. So during transformation, this increases, but this would decrease. That means, okay. So now the question is, let me draw some pictures. So I will talk about this one, strain energy. Let's have a look. So you can have, suppose, okay, let it be, suppose this is gamma, right? And this is suppose transforming into alpha dash, for example. So the gamma is transforming into this. Right? For example, suppose you have a material and here you have gamma, for example, and it is transforming into this alpha. Two things may happen, or one thing may happen, or two things may happen, or two things happen simultaneously. For example, there will be change in volume may happen, right? So volume of gamma and volume of alpha dash may be different, right? So what will happen? If volume will increase, for example, okay. So due to the transformation, so this is one. So what may happen like this? You can see, you can check the volume. So volume has increased. So if volume will increase, some strain will come into picture. Material is same, fixed. The volume of the entire material is fixed. But initially the material is having gamma phase, and that phase has become now alpha dash phase. And alpha dash phase has more volume. Right? So what will happen? Strain will come into picture. Right? So some strain will associate with the change in volume. That means. That is called dilatation strain. You can write it. Dilatation strain. So dilatation strain means the strain associated with the change in volume. Right? If volume will also decrease, again strain will be there. Right? Anything may happen. But if the volume will remain same, there will be no strain. The parent phase volume and product phase volume will be same. So there will be no strain in the material because volume was same. But if the volume will change, some strain will come. That is called dilatation strain. Okay, fine. And similarly, it doesn't mean your initial phase and final phase have same shape. The shape may also change. Gamma shape is different. Alpha dash phase shape will be different. So another strain energy will be associated with change in shape. That is called shear strain. Right? That is called shear strain. Suppose this is the initial picture, and this become, for example, so this become like this. Just check what is happening. Initially, the shape is this one, but due to transformation, the shape has changed. So due to change in shape, energy will be associated, strain energy will be associated with it. That is called shear strain. Right? You can write. So one strain is dilatation strain, one strain is shear strain. So dilatation strain will happen if there will be change in volume of the product phase. But if the shape will change, product phase shape will change, then your shear strain will be there. Right? And sometimes what happens, if product phase volume also changes and shape also changes, then both strain will be there. Basically, which happens during martensitic transformation. So when austenite become martensite, both strain will be there in the material. Your shear strain will be there, plus your volume strain, that is dilatation strain will be there. How I can represent? I can represent in a simple way, like this. For example, suppose this is the starting material, and I want to show dilatation. This is the initial, I want to show dilatation. Or I want to show uniaxial dilatation, for example. Just see the volume change. This is called uniaxial dilatation. Why uniaxial? In one direction only, the volume has changed. That's why uniaxial. It may happen like this also. If you are confused, then it may happen like this. In both direction, both axes, the volume is changing. Fine. And if you want to show simple shear, okay, let me draw the simple shear. Simple shear will be how? The volume will be fixed, but what will happen? The shape will change. This is shear now. You can see the direction of force. Yes or no? That means this is the initial material and force is like this. What will happen? It will become shear. There is a shear. Right? So there is a change in shape. Right? So this is your shear strain. But now I want to show both shear and uniaxial dilatation. Can you draw it? Can you try? You take this one. From here you want to show both. So how we can represent this? Okay, let me draw it. So this is your starting material. So uniaxial dilatation. So what will happen? You can see the final. There is a uniaxial dilatation. There is a change in volume in one axis, right? And there will be a shear also. So this is the shear. You understand the point? But if you want to show both things at a time, how you can represent? You can represent like this. Okay. The final will be. Now you are getting a point? In this axis the volume has changed and there is a shear both. You just erase these things, you will get the answer. Okay? So up to this is simple shear and this is uniaxial dilatation. I combine them and it becomes this. Okay. So this kind of thing happens in martensitic transformation. So when austenite becomes martensite, there will be a change in volume, there will be a change in shape. Right? So obviously what will happen? There will be a lot of strain energy in the material. That's why, that is one of the point why martensite is harder. I told you in IPM, when you introduce lot of strain in the material, the strength increases. Right? Simple thing, no? When just take a piece of steel, you deform it plastically. Right? What will happen? You measure the hardness and strength again. The hardness will become more from the initial value, strength will become more from the initial value. Right? You understood my point now? That's why one of the point that why martensite is very. Okay, this is one part. Then I will tell you a very interesting fact. Okay, so suppose you have a material. When you apply a load on it, Suppose you are applying load on it. Your load is very high. So what will happen to the volume?
Decreases. Volume decreases.
Suppose you keep this one fixed. You don't change this one. This thickness you don't change. But there will be increase in the dimension. So that means volume will increase.
Yes.
If you don't change this one, but in the real situation it will decrease, it will increase, right? This will decrease, this will increase in the real situation. But my point is you don't change this thickness, but you increase the length. So volume will be more, obviously. Anyways, forget about that. Now the question is, when we are applying load on a material, what happens inside the material? What happens?
Grip.
Stress generated. Yes or no? Stress is what actually? What is the definition of stress is what exactly?
Force by.
Don't tell me force divided by area. That is the mathematical expression, right? But what physical meaning of stress means what?
External energy.
It is an internal force. It is the internal force which developed inside the material, and it resists the deformation. Right? You want to deform it by applying a load, but the material don't want to deform. So internal force will develop inside the material to stop this deformation. You understood my point? So you should not be confused. We basically apply load on the material. But some people say we are applying stress. If somebody is saying we are applying stress on the material, that means you are saying force versus area. Right? Force divided by per unit area. How much force is applied on it per unit area, that is the stress actually. But in physical meaning, what it means? Physical meaning means if you are applying a force or load on the material, an internal force is getting developed, that is nothing but the stress. Right? So what will happen? Finally, the length will change, the material length will change after that. That is called what? Strain. Change in length by original length, if you remember. Strain. So you are applying a force, you are changing the length, a stress is developing, and a strain is also developing. Yes or no? Yes. Up to this it is clear? Right? So that means stress and strain both are involved. Yes or no? Strain is changing length per original length. You have changed the length, that's why strain in the material is there. And an internal force is developing, that is stress. So stress and strain are both involved in the material. But can you tell me, can we have stress-free strain? We have a strain but there will be no stress. Is it possible? Material will be having only strain but there will be no stress. Is it possible? Just imagine. Up to this you people have understood. That means whenever you are deforming a material plastically, both stress will be there and strain will be there always. But is it possible that we do not have any stress but there will be strain? It can be possible. That is called stress-free strain. Material will be having strain but there will be no stress. How it is possible? Just do one thing. You take two rigid body. This is rigid. Rigid wall. This is rigid wall. This is rigid wall. This is rigid wall. And this is your metal piece, for example. If you hit this metal, what will happen? And this is one situation. Okay, you understand rigid wall means it will not move. This is fixed. This is fixed. And your metal is there. You heat it. You heat it. Similarly, you take a metal piece, same metal piece. You just heat it. The difference is here rigid wall is present. Here there is no. It is free. This is free. So what is the changes you can see? You are heating. When you heat a material, what happens? It gets expanded. Obviously, metal will expand. Solid expands on heating, right? So what will happen to this and what will happen to this? There will be no expansion because this is rigid now. This wall will not allow the metal to expand, but still it wants to expand. So what will happen? Stress will develop and strain will be there, or not? No. And what happens to this? So in this condition, the metal will expand because there is no rigid wall. It is free. It will expand. So expand means there is a change in length per original length, that is strain. But is there any stress? There is no stress. Because you are not applying any load or you are just hitting. You understood my point? But here in this condition, it wants to expand, but it cannot expand. Right? So this will be like stress will be there, but no strain. Right? So that means my point is you can have stress-free strain. That means strain will be there will be no stress. Or you can have a condition where stress will be there, but there will be no strain. It is possible, that means. You understand my point? But when you are deforming something, by applying force, both stress and strain will be present. You have to remember this point. Fine. So this is the condition, you have strain but no stress. Okay. Anyways, we will not discuss that. Okay, let me tell you an interesting point now. This one, about this one. So, okay, you people have understood this clearly. How strain energy is associated due to change in volume, due to shear. Right? Due to change in volume, due to shear or change in shape. Change in volume means dilatation strain. Change in shape means shear strain. Right? Now we will talk about this one, interfacial energy. What is the cause of interfacial energy or surface energy? Anybody remember from the chemistry or physics? From the 12th, maybe, I am not sure. To explain this, I am taking an example of ice cube. See, this is very important. You can get a question from in the end semester, maybe. So you can draw a cube. Suppose this is a when you are a kid, maybe some of you have eaten these ice cubes, right? My sister used to do that. So she loves to eat those ice cubes. I don't know why. Anyways, so you have an ice cube, right? Suppose just imagine a situation. You have thrown the ice cube into the air. Just imagine the situation. You have thrown the ice cube into the air and ice cube remains in floated condition. It is still in air. It will not fall, for example. This is an ideal situation. So can you people tell me whether the ice cube will melt everywhere simultaneously or it will start melting at certain locations first? Edge will melt. He is saying edge will melt first. Edge means he is talking about this edge. Right? These are the edges. Right? So these are nothing but the edges. And what is this? Corner. And what is this? Surface of surface.
Yes.
And okay, I am showing this one as surface. And I suppose this is the center. And what is this? Bulb. Right. So he told preferentially what happens when the ice will remain in floated condition, the edge will first melt. So it melts when it becomes spherical. Yes or no? Right? It becomes spherical. You can do an experiment. You can take the ice cube out of the refrigerator and you put it on the table. You can see after some time it becomes sphere, kind of. Not exactly sphere, it becomes sphere actually. It becomes spherical, not a cube now. So my question was, the melting means what is happening? Phase transformation is happening. Liquid is becoming solid. Solid is becoming liquid. This kind of thing is happening. Solid ice, solid H2O becomes liquid. Because why? Because temperature is higher than 0 degree centigrade. Fine. Can anybody justify? Is it that his answer is right or something else will happen? Just have a look. He told melting will start from the edge. Is it true? Or you are thinking entire ice cube will start melting everywhere? Just look at the diagram, you will get the point. Corners. The melting will start from the corners. First, the corner of the cube of the ice will melt and become spherical. Next, what he told, the edges, and next surface, then the bulk. So order of phase transformation is not happening everywhere simultaneously. What is the order? First your corner, then the edge, then the surface, then bulk. So this is the order of phase transformation happening. First the corner will melt and become spherical. You can do it. You can hold it otherwise. Why I am saying it is in floated condition? Because you can see everywhere. But it is not true. It will fall down quickly. Right? You can put it. You can hold it through your hand, and you can see the corner will start melting first. Right? Then after sometimes the edges will become spherical. Then after sometimes the surface will start melting, and finally the bulk will melt. So this is the way. This is the sequence of melting of the ice cube. So the question is why this is happening? Why not the entire ice cube is melting simultaneously? Why it is melting at corner first, then edges, then surface? Then. That is associated with the surface energy or interfacial energy. So where the interfacial energy will be higher or where the surface energy will be higher, it always try to decrease that part first. You understand my point? So in the ice cube, the corner part is having the maximum surface energy available. So the ice cube always try to reduce the surface energy first because energy is higher at that portion. Okay. Next the edges will come. Next the energy associated with the edges will be less compared to the corners. So it try to reduce the surface energy over there. It become round. Then again the surface energy of the surface will be lower compared to the edges. Then it will reduce. And finally the bulk surface energy will reduce and everything become liquid at the end. Right? So what it means? This corner has maximum surface energy available. And minimum surface energy is right? So this is the order of energy. Maximum surface energy, then minimum, the lowest. Right? Since the corner have maximum free energy, try to reduce the surface energy over here there first. Okay, you people have understood? So now the question is, what is the cause of this surface energy? Why the corner have highest surface energy? Why the bulk have lowest surface energy? Obviously that is the question now. You up to this you people have understood, right? Why corner is melting first? You people have understood because of maximum surface energy available over there. It try to reduce the surface energy first, right? But now the question will be, why the corner have maximum surface energy? Why the bulk have minimum free energy? Do you people remember the dangling bonds? Broken bonds. Anybody remember? Broken bond concept? Some bonds remain broken, right? There are certain bonds in the material, they remain broken. They are like incomplete bonds or dangling bonds, in some people call. So presence of maximum broken bonds at the corner, it has maximum surface energy associated with it. But if you check the bulk part, there will be no broken bonds. All bonds are complete. Each atom is bonded with every atom present around it. But if you take the corner, that is a sharp edge, sharp point. So, suppose this is a sharp end, sharp corner, right? So here the atom present in this tip are bonded to these atoms which are below this. But above this, there is no atoms, right? You are getting my point? Suppose this is your ice cube corner, for example, right? This part is ice cube, for example. So the atoms which are sitting on this top position, they have a bonding with the atoms at the bottom part. But the top atoms do not have a bonding with the atmosphere. You are getting my point? Because there is no atoms, right? So they are lot of broken bonds. Similarly, you go to edge. Edge also you can see the top atoms on the edge will have less broken bonds. Then you move to the surface, less. But when you move to bulk atom means it is surrounded by all atoms. Everywhere atoms are present. So there is no broken bonds. So that's why if there is no broken bond in the bulk atoms, so it has minimum energy available. You understand my point? So this surface energy or interfacial energy comes due to broken bonds present. More is the broken bond, more is the surface energy. You can write simply surface energy. I will justify. No? Surface energy is proportional to number of broken bonds available. Okay. So I can write maximum broken bonds here, no broken bond here. Right? Maximum broken bond here, no broken bond there. Right? It is okay. I will justify this. What is the crystal structure of ice cube? It is HCP. Now I have a question for you. Listen carefully. The ice cube structure is HCP. HCP means hexagonal closed packed structure. Right? What is the coordination number of HCP? Tell me. 12. Very good. 12 number of. What is coordination number? Then if I'll ask what is coordination number? How many nearest neighboring atoms are present? You choose any atom of HCP and you check how many surrounding atoms are present close to it. So you will find 12 number of atoms are present around any atoms. So if your ice cube is also HCP, that means everywhere it should have 12 number of atoms surrounding it. But at the corners, 12 number of atoms will be not there. The atom which is sitting on the corner, it do not have 12 number of atoms around it. Because on the top surface there is no atoms, missing atoms are there. So missing bond will be there, right? But at the bottom there will be some atoms, there will be bonding. You understand my point? If you are getting confused, then have a look. Suppose so these are, what is this? These are surface atoms. Okay, this is surface atom, right? This line. But what is this atom? This atom is a bulk atom, for example. Bulk atom means this atom is sitting inside the material, but this atom is sitting at the corner position or at the edge, for example. So you can see this atom is bonded with this one, and this atom is bonded with this one only, right? But if you take this atom, this is bonded with this one, this one, this one, and this one. You are getting my point? So 4 bonds are there, and it is complete. But if you look at this one, it is bonded with this and this, because there is no atoms here, no atoms here. So obviously that means some broken bonds will be here. You understand my point now? There will be a broken bond here, there will be a broken bond here, right? Similarly, you choose this one. You can see one bonding is this, one bonding is this, one bonding is this, and one bonding. All bonds are complete. Similarly, you choose this surface atom. So what will happen? Bonding will be this and this, or maybe this. One bond will be broken. Right? So more is the number of broken bonds, more is the surface energy available. And system always try to reduce the surface energy first where there is a maximum number of broken bonds, or where the surface energy is higher. First it want to reduce them. Okay? So that is the concept of surface energy. You understood now? So you people have understood what is strain energy due to change in volume, due to change in shape, and interfacial energy due to presence of broken bonds, right? And this one you know already, driving force, Gs minus Cl kind of. Free energy of product minus free energy of reactor. Okay. Okay, you can stop it.